everybody, this is Sang Nam, and today I'm going to visit one of my former professors' office and then ask him questions about getting job-related things. His class was one of the classes that I really liked. The class was about getting a job, so basically provided all the basic information about how to get a job and tips and stuff. Honestly, for me, I thought that getting a job wasn't gonna go easy for me since I had a low GPA. My major's GPA was okay, but my cumulative GPA wasn't looking great, so I had to figure something out and took this class. I got a job, and I'm trying to share this great information with you guys, so we'll see how this goes.
The only thing that matters is you get what you deserve. But I know for sure today will come when
About 30 minutes, I think. Nice to meet you, Mr. Herman. I'm Dr. Herman.
Nice to meet you, SK.
First of all, thanks for inviting me. I was kind of worried actually that you might decline my offer since you were I know that you're super busy.
No. This is excellent. I'm glad to talk.
So the reason why I wanted to stop by was during my senior year, I don't think I had a great GPA compared to other people, so I wanted to emphasize something else, and I didn't know what I had to do. And after taking your class, I think I figured out how to make myself look good to companies so that they want to hire me, and it happened. I think the class, your part, definitely did a huge role in terms of me building up my resume, portfolio, even the cover letters.
What about your confidence?
My confidence too, also, definitely. Yeah. So I wanted to share this secret tips among all my subscribers. And
So can I interrupt?
yeah.
I have to disagree with one thing you just said. I don't think there's anything secret about it. I mean, I've got ideas, but fundamentally, there's no secret here. But I think what I'm doing, or at least trying to do, and trying to get you all as students to come along, is to be more thoughtful about what you're doing, as opposed to doing it more intuitively, or even just because this is what people said you should do. So, no secret.
So today's topic will be what are the important things we need to know in terms of getting a job in the US. I'm going to assume that everyone knows how to make resume, portfolio, and cover letter. First one will be, so could you tell us what are the things we need to get a job in the US, like just the fundamental things?
My most favorite question to ask people, students, when they're sitting here is, what's the purpose of a resume? And most will say, well, it's to display my skills or my experiences or my, and they'll list things, or to, show what I can do. And what I'm trying to do is get them back around to, that is not the most fundamental purpose of a resume. Purpose of a resume is to get a job interview. We do that by putting certain things on the resume, but the resume's purpose isn't to show off or to display these things in and of themselves. I could look at those and say, and throw the resume out and not call you. I tell that story to get back to your question of, what are these fundamental things? And for me, what's fundamental is understanding the job search process and how the process is working and how you fit into it, and starting to understand communication principles that are going to help you better navigate that process. So, for example, even getting back to that idea of the resume, if I think of the resume as a thing where I'm supposed to show off or display my skills and experiences, that isn't as helpful as thinking I have to create a document intended for this other person to read and to be compelled within 15, 30 seconds, maybe a couple of minutes if they're being generous with their time, being compelled to pick up the phone and reach out to me and say, SK, I liked what I saw, interesting, I want to talk more. And thinking that way starts to then shape my decision making of what I'm going to put on the resume, because some skills might not mean anything. Or your GPA, once you start to realize, oh, maybe my particular audience, they don't care about my GPA. And so I don't even need to put it there. I don't need to be concerned about that, because I know the people that are going to be looking at my resume are thinking about and are more concerned about other things. What are these fundamental things? For me, there's lots of things that are going to be changing, with jobs and opportunities, but the communication process, at least as far as I can look into the future, isn't going to change. And so for me, that's what's fundamental.
When I made my resume, I was thinking, will my employers actually care about my GPA? None of the companies that interviewed me really cared. Like they didn't really care about the GPA.
Right.
They only cared about my portfolio, you know, what I've done. Because I am a videographer, they only wanted to see the actual videos that I can provide.
Can you make good videos?
That's all they care.
Yeah, and it's not to say that your GPA or that a person's GPA might not be important. For example, your GPA important for this audience. And in your case, no. They don't care if you had a 4.0 but don't know how to shoot good video. And they don't care that you have a 2.0 if you can shoot great video.
The second question will be from the professor's perspective. What was the most common mistakes that many students made in terms of making resume?
When I look at books about resumes, or usually when I hear students talking about their resumes, template made me do this, or this other person said this is what I should do. For me, I think the most common mistake is putting material down and not knowing why. You should be able to explain every item on your resume. So I should be able to point to something and say, SK, why did you put this here? And why did you even format it this way? And if you aren't able to do that, or if your best answer is, well, because this person said so. For me, that's not a very compelling, purposeful response. And so my goal is to get students to be stepping outside themselves and putting themselves into the position of the person who's going to be looking at that resume. One simple example is, in the education section, most everybody would say you shouldn't have your high school information there. And in general, I would agree. And if I saw it there and it's like, SK, why do you have your high school listed on your resume? You've graduated from college. And if you said, oh, well, I know that the company I'm applying to, or the people who are going to be looked at this, many of them went to that high school. Okay, right? There's at least an explanation. I may or may not agree with it. It may or may not work, but at least you are making a purposeful decision and putting it there because I think that's going to create a connection with my reader and move the process forward.
I think that's the mistake I made definitely when I was making my first resume. I wanted to put every single experiences, even about when I was working at the fusion market, like making sandwiches. And then what does this have to do with video making?
The resume, it's a tool by which to help somebody make a decision of whether or not they want to continue a conversation with you. We feel we need to put everything on there, and maybe we don't. Does your reader need to know that you had a part-time job as a college student making sandwiches at a market? Maybe not. Cluttering the resume with that information and using up that space that you might be able to use in a more effective or compelling way is not necessarily a good idea if you don't need to put it there.
What if a student never worked before, like don't have any experiences working?
Two comments before I answer the question directly. One, we can't change the past. At this point, I haven't worked. It's not like I can go back in time and try to work. For me, there's no sense dwelling on that. I can't control who's reading my resume and how they're going to respond. If I need to stop allowing myself to become anxious about, well, what are people going to think? So what am I going to put on this piece of paper? I have to put something down, and that's where do you need to start to be more creative? Or do you also take other kinds of steps? Maybe I'm still going to have to look for internship. At the same time, again, when we think about the person who is looking at your resume, they're trying to make a decision about whether this particular person is going to be the best fit for this job. And at the end of the day, what they're concerned about are things like attitude, values, and skills. They're not primarily concerned about what was your major or jobs per se. The jobs that we list, it's not so much that it was the job primarily, but what did I do at the job? And what skills do I have now that I'm going to be able to carry into this next job? If you haven't had a lot of work experience, what other ways have you been still working on those and developing those skills that are important to your perceived audience member? If you hadn't had any work though, my first counsel would probably go, you need to start thinking about some internship.
Fourth question is, why is connection and referring so important?
There's that old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. That little phrase bothers me at times because at the end of the day, for 99% of us, I would say, if you don't know things, it doesn't matter who you know. I wouldn't recommend you or send your name along to somebody for video opportunities if I didn't trust that you would be able to do the work. I'm not going to put my own reputation on the line. We do need to have that foundation of knowledge and skill and ability and good work ethic and that kind of stuff. But fundamentally, we're relational beings. We want to get information and learn about people through other people we know. That's going to create more opportunities. Now, if you're doing that, but you still unqualified at the skill level, the networks are going to be meaningless ultimately. They might last you for a while, but people are going to stop supporting you. So it's that combination of developing skills and things. But yeah, are we developing relationships? And they play that important role, especially when you are identified with a particular group. And for me, that's usually alumni. And fundamentally, within that group, people are glad to and even excited to be able to help. It makes me feel good if I'm able to help somebody who is 10 years younger than me and help them grow into a profession or find an opportunity. And so alumni like to do that. So we want to take advantage of that in an appropriate way, use that to find new opportunities.
Fifth question is, why is having a goal so important in terms of getting a job? Because I remember when I was taking your class, everybody kind of had to know what their goal is.
I have to be honest, I'm not a very goal-oriented person. Some of my decisions about changing my major while in college or, what's the next step hasn't been nearly as thoughtful as perhaps I force you all to be. Don't tell anybody. As I like to tell my class, I'm always concerned about two groups of people. The one group are the ones who are super goal-oriented. I know this, and then in 3 years this, and in 5 years this, and there's a part of me that's concerned about those folks. The other is the other end of the spectrum. The ones like, everything's chill, it'll come about, everything is good, and they're just totally kind of living in the moment. And my concern for both of them actually is that opportunities are potentially popping up and coming across their path, but they don't see the opportunity. On this end, they're so goal-oriented that they're kind of looking straight forward and things are popping up and they don't see it. On this end, there could be opportunities, but they don't have things in their head that are going to set off triggers like, oh wait, I was thinking about this and there's a lot of similarities here. I need to investigate that further. And that doesn't mean that this person isn't going to get a job, but it's more there could be interesting and highly relevant things that they're just missing because the triggers aren't there. And so for me, the idea of a goal isn't necessarily I want to be a marketing person or I want to be a videographer. It might be for some, but it's at least what is the language that I'm able to now be articulate about so that I have triggers that I can use when I'm looking at opportunities or hearing about things, but also that I can articulate to somebody else. Even as we're talking, if I was thinking about a career change, well, I think I'm done teaching. I want to now start doing more administration. If I don't have some things that I can say to you, it's like, SK, I'm thinking about this. Oh, you know what? I've got a friend who, and maybe you should talk to him. So I need that language, goal language, career names, or even these are the things I'd like to be doing. You don't care what your label is, as long as I'm able to be creative, doing video, film stuff. Call me a film person, call me a videographer, call me whatever. I just want to be able to do these things. So having that language allows me, if we're talking, to say, oh, you should talk to.
Our last question will be, what is the most important part of preparing a job interview?
For me, hands down, is preparation. Going all the way back to the first question even, is thinking about your audience and what are their needs, what are their goals, what are their problems, what kind of company is this, what are the company values, and then not preparing to have an interview, but preparing to have a conversation. How can I anticipate questions that I think they might ask me? And before you go, type out answers, at least some bullet points, so that when those questions come up or something related to it, you are prepared. One quick example, here where I teach, it's a 4-year teaching institution. Undergraduates in particular are the focus of what we do. When we are hiring and looking to hire new faculty, those are questions we'll ask about. And there are some people who haven't thought about that at all. Or in their cover letter that they send us, they'll speak for a page about all of their research and not say anything about their teaching. And for me, that shows an incredible lack of preparation and lack of awareness of what is important to those people. I don't care about your research necessarily. You need to figure out if the research is important to the person who's going to be reading this. And if it isn't...
So I did the outro, and for some reason, camera didn't record it, so I'm re-filming the outro. This is very awkward, but I hope you guys understand. Thank you, Dr. Herman,
You're very welcome.
for helping me out on everything in general, from the getting job to setting up my goal and everything. I'm really hoping that many other students are gonna get a lot of things out from
Yeah, me
your
too.
class.
Yeah. No, it's been fun chatting. Glad to have you come back. It's always fun to visit with alumni. So thank you for taking the time out of your day. And again, I hope it does help others just like you do. So thank you.
Thank you.